Hello friends, I am glad to see you again. Today I will tell you about the housing association, which for some reason decided that I should be evicted. I was asleep on my couch, TV still glowing faint blues across the living room, when my cell phone shattered the silence. The screen said, "Unknown caller," but the timestamp glared brighter than anything else, 2:39 a.m. Groggy, I thumbed the answer button. "Hello?" A voice burst through like a fire alarm. "What are you doing in that house?" a woman screeched. "You are being evicted right now. Pack up and wait on the curb." That woke me faster than any energy drink. "I think you have the wrong—" "I'm Loretta, president of the Oakwood Bluffs Homeowners Association," she barked, every word crackling with static and caffeine. "And I'm telling you, you don't belong there." My half-awake brain tried to process why the HOA president, whom I'd never met, would call at this hour. I'd closed on the place 3 weeks earlier, handed over a down payment the size of a comet, and filed all my paperwork with the HOA office the day after move-in. Property deeds sat in a fireproof safe 10 feet away. Still clinging to manners, I replied, "Ma'am, I own this house. Is there some paperwork missing?" "You signed no occupancy approval," she ranted. "Your presence is unauthorized. Vacate immediately or face consequences." Then she hung up. I stared at the phone like it might explain itself. Had I fallen asleep watching a prank show marathon? I set the phone down, thinking this had to be an error. Then it rang again. Same unknown number. "I'm warning you, Missy." Her re-entry sounded angrier if that was possible. "The board voted 2 hours ago to rescind your occupancy. Police will escort you out if you don't leave." Something snapped in me the way a dry twig snaps under a boot. "Okay," I said, voice as level as granite. "You want police? I'll call them myself." I pressed end, scrolled to the non-emergency line for our county sheriff, and relayed that someone claiming to be my HOA president was harassing and threatening eviction. The dispatcher sent a unit. 15 minutes later, Deputy Harrison knocked. I opened the door, still in plaid pajama pants, and told him everything. He walked the perimeter with me, found nothing amiss, and shook his head. "An HOA can't evict you at 3 in the morning. If they have a civil complaint, they file it during business hours. Call us again if she contacts you." He handed me a card and left. I tried to sleep. No dice, my pulse slammed in my ears, so I brewed coffee and pulled up the HOA bylaws on my laptop, reading while the sun crawled up the horizon. Nowhere did it grant the board authority to remove an owner without a court order. Not at 2:39 a.m., not ever. At 7 a.m. sharp, doorbell rang. I opened it to find Loretta herself, immaculate hair sprayed into architectural rigidity, flanked by 2 board members. The taller one held a clipboard like a shield. The shorter one fidgeted with a stack of neon orange violation notices. Loretta's perfume hit before her words. "We gave you verbal notice. You failed to comply. These are your written citations." She thrust a manila envelope into my chest. "Step off my property," I said, calm but cold. My phone was recording, tucked discreetly in a shirt pocket. Loretta glanced at my welcome mat like it was toxic. "Don't make this harder. The board discovered irregularities in your closing documents. You are a trespasser in this community. Show me proof. We'll reveal evidence at the hearing." "What hearing?" She smirked. "The emergency hearing tonight." Cool. I'd apparently time-traveled to medieval England where people got ambushed with secret trials. I kept my expression neutral. "I'll need proper notice and documentation, and you are all officially trespassing. Leave." "Or you'll do what?" Loretta sneered. I gestured to the Ring doorbell light blinking red. "Smile, you're already on candid camera." Clipboard guy tugged her sleeve. They backed off but plastered an orange notice to my mailbox before marching away. The heading read, "Official cease and desist. Unauthorized occupancy." By noon, I'd spoken to my real estate attorney, Teresa Goodwin, who laughed so hard she snorted. "They have zero authority to boot you in the dead of night," she confirmed. "This is pure harassment. Save every voicemail, every scrap of paper." While we talked, another subplot slid onto the stage. My neighbor across the street, a barrel-chested man named Kip, ambled over holding a mug that said, "World's okayest coach. Heard the fireworks last night," he said, eyes glittering with nosiness. "Did Loretta finally catch another squatter?" "Not a squatter. I own the place." He raised a brow. "She told the neighborhood you forged your title." "Ah, so the rumor mill was already cranking." "Wonderful. That's false," I said. "I have the original deed." "Look, I stay neutral," Kip said, scratching his salt and pepper beard. "But Loretta's been on a mission since the last guy moved out. Something about unpaid dues and unauthorized renovations. If you need anything, holler." He ambled back across the street, leaving me wondering why neutrality came with free gossip. That evening, I drove to the HOA office in the community clubhouse, armed with a thick folder of closing documents. The lobby smelled like stale lemon cleaner. Loretta and 5 board members sat behind a folding table, nameplates gleaming under fluorescent lights. A camcorder on a tripod pointed at a single folding chair facing them. My seat. The vibe screamed budget inquisition. Loretta started. "We've reviewed your settlement statement and found anomalies. The prior owner, Mr. Denby, owed 8 months of dues. The board never cleared the lien. Therefore, your purchase is invalid." My attorney, attending by speakerphone, cut in. "That's not how liens work. A lien doesn't invalidate a sale. It simply travels with the property, and the new owner can negotiate its clearance. My client offered to pay the $640 balance at closing, and your treasurer signed off." Eyes shifted down the table toward a stout woman, Merrill, treasurer, who suddenly found great interest in her pen. Loretta ignored the point. "Regardless, the board has voted unanimously. You must vacate within 48 hours. "I respectfully decline," I said, "and I will be filing a harassment complaint." Loretta's jaw squared. "Then we escalate. We'll disable your access to amenities, revoke your parking privileges." "Cutting off utilities is illegal," I reminded her. "Civil Code Section 1940.2 forbids that." I slid printed copies across the table. Loretta's nostrils flared. 2 hours later, I left with no resolution but plenty of footage. The board's legal grasp was Swiss cheese, and I owned a camera full of holes. Next morning, Kip's SUV blocked my driveway. A tow truck idled behind it, amber lights flashing. Loretta stood nearby in a tailored blazer, arms folded. Kip watched, arms also folded, like an extra in a courtroom drama. I marched out. "Move your truck." "It's HOA order," Kip said. "They tagged your driveway as common area." "No, they didn't," I replied, pointing to the survey stakes at the property line. "Step aside." I dialed Deputy Harrison again. He arrived before the tow driver could hook my bumper. Harrison calmly asked for documentation. Loretta produced a handwritten note. Harrison shook his head. "Not valid." He threatened to cite the tow operator if they didn't leave. They did, grumbling. Loretta glared at me with storm cloud eyes. By week's end, I'd gathered more threads. Residents whispered about missing HOA funds, landscapers unpaid, security cameras offline. Teresa and I suspected Loretta was camouflaging embezzlement with bluster, targeting new owners too overwhelmed to fight back. We decided on a plan. Malicious compliance wrapped in shiny legal ribbon. Step 1. Request the HOA's financials, which under state law they had to provide within 10 business days. Step 2. File a restraining order for harassment if the 2:39 a.m. calls continued. Step 3. Start quietly recruiting neighbors sick of Loretta's reign for a special election to recall the board. That weekend, I typed a polite but firm letter citing Civil Code Section 5200 and Section 5260, requesting all financials for the past 3 years. I hand-delivered copies to each board member and sent certified mail receipts for good measure. They had to sign, and they did. Faces twisted like they'd bitten lemons. Meanwhile, I installed extra ring cameras and a motion-activated floodlight that beamed like stadium lights anytime someone stepped onto my path. Kip suddenly found the sidewalk less interesting. But Loretta wasn't done. At 11 p.m. Monday, I heard rustling by my trash bins. The new floodlight flipped on, revealing clipboard guy rifling through my recycling. He looked up, deer in headlights, then bolted. Cameras caught everything. I emailed the footage to Teresa. Within an hour, she drafted a cease and desist and had it notarized. Clipboard guy was personally served the next morning by a courier wearing a neon logo t-shirt that read, "Legal Eagle Express." The neighbors enjoyed that show. Day 10 arrived and no financial documents appeared. That let us move to step 2, legal escalation. Teresa filed a petition in small claims court compelling the HOA to comply and tacking on a $500 penalty per day of delay per statute. She also attached my ring footage and deputy reports. That afternoon, Kip showed up again, this time holding a homemade apple pie. "Thought maybe we got off on the wrong foot," he offered, eyes darting from side to side. I accepted the pie, I'm not a monster, and invited him onto the porch. "What's really going on?" I asked. He sighed. "Look, Loretta promised reduced dues for anyone who helped enforce compliance. Said board members could approve bonus credits if we kept squatters out. I figured one conversation couldn't hurt. But now my wife is furious. She thinks Loretta's gone off the rails." I let silence expand until it felt heavier than the pie tin. Then Kip added, "If you need a vote to recall the board, I'm in." Bingo! Allies were sprouting like spring weeds. 2 days later, Loretta tried one last Hail Mary. I came home to find my water shut off and a bright pink tag on the faucet. Utility freeze. HOA violation. Perfect. Tampering with a public utility was felony territory. I phoned the county water district, who dispatched an inspector within an hour. The lock on my valve was a cheap brass gadget anyone could buy at Home Depot. The inspector photographed it, wrote an incident report, and turned the valve back on. This time I pressed charges. Police interviewed Loretta that evening. She insisted the board authorized the lock. Harrison called me later, chuckling. She tried to argue the HOA owned your pipes. Thanks, deputy. By now, whispers about missing funds had become roars. A retired accountant 3 streets over, Miss Dahlia, volunteered to audit the HOA books once we obtained them. An emergency neighborhood meeting convened at the community park, away from clubhouse surveillance. 70 residents showed, from stroller-pushing parents to gray-haired veterans. I presented Deputy Harrison's reports, my footage, and the water tampering incident. Gasps rippled through the crowd like wind in wheat. We drafted a petition. Call a special election to remove the current HOA board and appoint an interim committee. It needed signatures from 20% of homeowners. We hit 35% that night. Loretta retaliated by mailing glossy flyers portraying me as a trespasser jeopardizing property values. She even photoshopped a foreclosed sign onto an image of my front lawn. Problem: my actual lawn looked normal and folks had already seen the deputy at her door. The smear campaign backfired spectacularly. When day 20 of non-compliance with the financial request arrived, our small claims hearing took place. Loretta strutted in wearing a crimson power suit, flanked by a junior lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The judge read the statute aloud, confirmed my certified mail receipts, and ordered the HOA to produce all requested documents within 72 hours, plus $10,000 in statutory penalties to be credited against the HOA's reserve fund. The gallery, mostly neighbors, erupted in quiet fist pumps. Loretta turned magenta. The next 72 hours felt like waiting for a thunderclap after watching the lightning. Noon on deadline day, a courier lugged 3 dusty banker's boxes to my porch, eyes wide as if he'd seen ghosts inside. The lids were half-taped, papers jutting like broken bones. I signed, thanked him, and wheeled the trove into my dining room, where Miss Dahlia and Kip already waited with iced tea and an old-school adding machine that clicked like castanets. We cracked the first box. On top lay invoices for playground mulch, $10,000 of it. Yet the neighborhood playground still sat on sun-bleached pea gravel sprinkled with dandelions. Beneath that, payments for security patrol overtime billed to a defunct company whose address traced to a storage locker downtown. And laced through every folder were consulting stipends, issued to a L. Marquette, Loretta's maiden name, totaling $42,000 over 18 months. Dahlia whistled low. "This isn't sloppy bookkeeping, it's a siphon." She built a spreadsheet faster than you could say Control-C. Kip sorted bank statements while I scanned receipts with a handheld wand that saved PDFs straight to a thumb drive. By sunset, our tally showed $186,000 missing from the reserve fund. Money earmarked for roof repairs, streetlights, and a promised dog park that never materialized. We needed airtight proof, so I called Teresa. She advised hiring a licensed forensic CPA to bulletproof the numbers. The HOA's own bylaws allowed any member to request an external audit if misappropriation was suspected. We pooled a retainer that night. Turns out neighbors will open their wallets when their dues morph into someone else's marble countertop. Loretta must have sensed the walls inching closer because her next strike landed at dawn. A municipal code inspector rapped on my door holding a freshly printed complaint. Unpermitted structural alterations. Someone alleged I'd knocked down a load-bearing wall, endangering adjoining homes. The inspector toured my perfectly intact house, scribbled "no violation," and left shaking her head. On her way out, she muttered, "Second bogus call I've had this month." I didn't have to ask who placed the first. Meanwhile, new board recall efforts lurched forward like a freight train. The petition signatures climbed past 60%, enough to trigger a special vote under Article 9 of the bylaws. We reserved the high school auditorium for the following Tuesday, big enough to fit even the apathetic residents who only showed up when the pool heaters failed. 2 days before the election, I found my mailbox door hanging crooked, hinges busted. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Withdraw your petition or face legal ruin. No signature, but the perfume smudged on the edge smelled like Loretta's lavender and pepper concoction. I installed a sturdier lockbox right then and filed another police report. Deputy Harrison looked almost apologetic. Harassment statutes on your side. Keep stacking evidence. That night, Kip's teenager Bryce rang my bell. He thrust his phone forward. Video paused on a grainy clip. Loretta and clipboard guy unloading black trash bags into a construction dumpster behind the clubhouse, time-stamped just after midnight. Bryce grinned. Caught this on my drone, figured it might help. It did. The next morning, Dahlia, Teresa, the forensic CPA, Mr. Vega, and I donned gloves and sifted the dumpster. Inside was the smoking cannon, shredded ledger pages, half-burned checkbooks, and a USB drive snapped clean in two. Vega gently bagged everything, labeling evidence like a seasoned crime show extra. He even reconstructed enough cross-shredded paper to reveal checks written to cash, endorsed by Loretta. Dollar signs lined up like bowling pins. Election night arrived humid and tense. Residents filed into the auditorium under flickering lights, murmurs bouncing off shiny gym floors. Loretta and her board clustered near the stage, wearing matching navy blazers as though costume coordination could fend off an uprising. Per procedure, current president opened the meeting. Loretta's smile twitched. First order of business, dismissal of frivolous recall petition due to procedural defects. Teresa interrupted from the front row, microphone in hand. Point of order. The petition meets bylaw requirements under Section 9.2. We move to vote. A rumble of agreement swept the bleachers. Loretta's gavel thunked helplessly. Fine, she spat. Count your votes. Ballots were simple. Remove current board, yes or no. Volunteers passed locked boxes up and down rows while two sheriff's deputies, hired for neutrality, observed. Kip and Dahlia tallied on stage overhead projector style. Every yes slide projected in bold 72-point font for transparency. The final tally glowed like fireworks, 134 yes, 19 no. Loretta's shoulders sagged. A neighbor in back started a slow clap that caught like brush fire until the rafters rattled. Per bylaws, the outgoing board had to relinquish all records to an interim committee pending full elections. Vega, now retained by the interim group, served Loretta a written demand for laptops, hard drives, and bank keys by noon next day. She shoved the paper back at him. Deputy Harrison, on duty for crowd control, stepped forward. Ma'am, failing to comply will constitute obstruction. She reluctantly pocketed the notice. I drove home buzzing, adrenaline playing drums on my ribs. But celebration turned to worry when my porch light revealed deep scratches around the deadbolt. Someone had tried to jimmy my lock. Inside, drawers were yanked open, paperwork scattered like confetti. My safe, however, was anchored and intact. The only items missing, the original neon orange violation notice and the thumb drive of scanned receipts, but I'd backed up everything to cloud storage that afternoon. I called the sheriff at 1:10 a.m. Loretta's 2:39 curse hour apparently worked on a sliding scale. Deputies dusted for prints. Gloved techs lifted several usable ones from a dresser knob. They wouldn't say who until confirmed, but their raised eyebrows hinted they recognized them. Next morning, interim chair, big-hearted retiree named Marisol, phoned. Loretta had refused to surrender the association's main laptop, claiming it held personal recipes. Marisol obtained an emergency court order. A deputy accompanied her to Loretta's house. According to Marisol, the laptop sat on Loretta's kitchen counter, power cord still warm. Screen open to a spreadsheet titled budget_projection_2025 beneath a minimized browser window showing a luxury cruise website. The deputy seized the computer. Loretta reportedly tried to slam a cupboard door in protest and caught 2 fingers, karma's gentle nibble. She signed the release forms left-handed while muttering about conspiracies. With equipment in ethical hands, Vega dove into hard drive forensics. Within 48 hours, he produced a thick binder of irregular transfers. Tens of thousands funneled to prepaid debit cards. Phantom landscaping bills looping back to an LLC controlled by Loretta's nephew. Even HOA funds used for a down payment on Loretta's brand-new electric SUV, the same one she touted as her eco upgrade during board meetings. Interim committee shared the findings at a Saturday town square gathering beside the pool. Loretta never resurfaced. Gasps morphed into shouts of "press charges." A unanimous voice vote empowered the committee to file a civil suit for restitution, and to cooperate fully with criminal investigators. Teresa delivered documentation to the district attorney that Monday. Meanwhile, Loretta's smear flyers escalated. Glossy postcards claiming I orchestrated a hostile takeover to build vacation rentals. She taped them to mailboxes, again illegal. Residents peeled them off and brought them to me like lost puppies. One neighbor, software developer named Z, printed fact check, false stickers, and covered every flyer. His kids helped like it was an Easter egg hunt. Then the subpoenas hit. Clipboard guy, real name Trevor, folded first. Faced with potential felony for tampering with my water valve, he agreed to testify that Loretta instructed him to do it, promising board leniency. He also admitted the midnight phone calls came from Loretta's kitchen speakerphone while she sat sipping herbal tea to keep her throat strong for enforcement. Loretta, still clinging to delusion, filed for a temporary restraining order against the interim board, accusing them of theft of intellectual property. Her recipes, perhaps. The judge denied it in 8 seconds flat. Criminal charges followed: embezzlement, vandalism, impersonating a public official for the fake utility freeze, burglary for my ransacked house, and simple assault for shoving Marisol during laptop retrieval, caught on body cam. Loretta was booked, posted bail fast, but her mugshot plastered local headlines. She shielded her face with a blue folder bearing HOA letterhead. Ironic branding. While lawyers wrangled, life in Oakwood Bluffs slowly normalized. The playground finally received real mulch, delivered at cost by a sympathetic supplier once he heard why kids had splinters. Streetlights flickered back on after overdue power bills got paid from recovered funds. A volunteer crew planted the long-promised dog park, and neighbors spent Saturday mornings sipping coffee while mutts chased tennis balls across fresh sod. Even Kip's neutrality evaporated. He coached a free t-ball clinic for neighborhood kids, Bryce flying the drone for overhead footage. My own subplot found closure when county prosecutors returned the burglary fingerprints. Undeniable match to Loretta. She'd snuck in after the election meeting, fishing for anything she could twist into evidence of wrongdoing. Instead, she left tangible proof of her own. 2 weeks before trial, Loretta's attorney floated a plea deal: full restitution of $186,000, plus 5 years probation and 500 hours community service, in exchange for guilty pleas on reduced counts. The DA countered restitution, 3 years prison, parole after 18 months with good behavior, mandatory resignation from any HOA board for life. She balked, insisted on her innocence. Trial commenced midsummer, courthouse air conditioning straining against humidity. I testified first, recounting the 2:39 a.m. call, the sham citations, the water tampering, the break-in. The defense tried painting me as combative. Teresa produced deputy reports showing I followed every legal channel. Jury faces remained stone. Trevor's testimony lit the courtroom like a flare. He described Loretta rehearsing intimidation scripts in her mirror, tweaking phrasing for maximum dread. When asked why he'd obey, he said, "She threatened to fine me $1,000 a day for my kid's basketball hoop." Gasps rippled. Then Vega walked jurors through the money trail, projected on a massive screen, ending with the $34,000 consulting fee wired the day before Loretta's cruise deposit. That image stayed frozen while he explained shell corporations. It was the legal equivalent of a mic drop. Loretta's defense rested after calling just one witness, her niece, who testified Loretta worked tirelessly for the community. Cross-examination revealed the niece received a $3,000 decorating stipend for painting Loretta's living room. Jurors exchanged knowing glances. Deliberations lasted 4 hours. Verdict: guilty on all major counts. Sentencing set for September. The judge revoked bail due to risk of financial flight. As bailiffs cuffed her, Loretta stared at me, not with rage now, but with hollow disbelief that her empire of fear had collapsed. In a quirky twist, the county jail had a community service gardening program. Loretta, who once fined a neighbor for planting azaleas 4 inches too close to the sidewalk, now spent mornings weeding tomatoes under guard supervision. Karma doesn't just nibble, sometimes it feasts. Restitution payments began promptly, prison wages garnished, plus liquidation of Loretta's vacation home timeshare. Each month, the interim board posted a transparent ledger online. HOA dues actually dropped 10% because fraudulent security expenses vanished. Kip and I became accidental friends. We set up neighborhood movie nights with a projector on the dog park fence. Bryce streamed drone views for fun intros. Dahlia, embracing her accountant roots, ran for treasurer in the permanent board election and won unopposed. One evening, the new board invited me to speak about homeowner rights. I ended my little presentation with a line Deputy Harrison once used. "Rules protect everyone, but bullies weaponize them. Know the difference and document everything." Applause felt weirdly wholesome. I sometimes replay the voicemail that started it all, Loretta's shrill demand echoing at 2:39 a.m., just to remind myself how flimsy tyranny sounds when shown under legal light. My property's still mine, my house keys jingle like victory bells. The saga isn't a fairy tale, gutters still clog, and the pool heater will probably break again. But neighbors learned that collective spine beats individual fear, and I learned that a calm voice, a charged phone, and a well-timed call to law enforcement can crack even the most lacquered facade. September arrived thick with cicada buzz and courtroom déjà vu. Sentencing day felt different, though. No mystery remained. Loretta, now in county-issue khakis instead of her signature blazers, shuffled in between two deputies. Her hair, once architecturally lacquered, had surrendered to humidity and pragmatism. It hung in a limp bob that made her look suddenly ordinary. Judge Rivera opened with housekeeping, then invited victim statements. Marisol spoke for the interim board, her soft voice steady. The defendant didn't just steal money. She stole trust. She weaponized rules meant to protect neighbors and used fear to silence us. Kip followed, admitting his brief complicity and praising the community's course correction. When my turn came, I kept it short. At 2:39 a.m., she faked authority. "Tonight my porch light still flips on, but now we wave to each other instead of hiding." That's the difference between power and community. Loretta's attorney pled for leniency, citing first-time offense and community contributions. The prosecutor countered that her contributions were a facade for systematic theft. Rivera cleared his throat, gaze sweeping the packed gallery. The law views embezzlement as theft of both property and public confidence. Considering the scale, the planning, and the harassment used to conceal it, he paused. Let the silence amplify. I sentenced the defendant to 3 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 21 months, plus full restitution and a permanent bar from serving on any homeowner's board. Gasps, then relieved sighs. Loretta's shoulders slumped as bailiffs guided her away. She didn't look back. Restitution meant liquidating ill-gotten assets, the electric SUV, the cruise deposit, refundable under fraud statutes, even sale of custom patio furniture purchased with HOA checks. The proceeds, about $214,000 after auction, arrived in a cashier's check addressed to the Oakwood Bluffs Reserve Fund. Marisol held a special meeting where we decided to allocate half to long-delayed infrastructure, the cracked tennis courts, the leaky pool filters, and half to a community goodwill grant overseen by residents. Anyone with a neighborhood improvement idea could apply. The first project funded was Bryce's brainchild, installing solar-powered motion-sensing streetlights along the main loop, ending the stretch of nighttime gloom Loretta always promised but never delivered. The vendor gave a discount once he heard the backstory. Public-spirited vengeance tastes sweet. Around this time, another subplot kicked up. The previous owner of my house, Mr. Denby, reached out via certified mail. He'd heard about the trial and felt terrible that his unpaid dues played a cameo in Loretta's harassment. He enclosed a check for the $640 balance plus interest for peace of mind. I deposited it into the Goodwill grant, attaching a note, "Kindness from former neighbor." Grant committee approved repainting playground equipment in bright, heat-reflective colors. Legal peace let smaller hassles bloom. Miss Hannah griped about chronic dog waste, Mr. Tuck about speeders, so Z built a no-frills town hall app where anyone could post a problem and track fixes. Transparency felt exotic after years behind Loretta's curtain. I slipped back into normal life, jogs, deadlines, grocery runs. But municipal codes became beach reads, and a clip-on body cam my odd security blanket. A month after Loretta's sentencing, a pale envelope arrived from her prison. The note was tidy, regretful, offering organizational skills. We acknowledged it, set hard boundaries, and moved on. Trevor, once clipboard guy, begged to log community service hours. Under supervision, he repainted curb numbers and filled raised beds with compost, proof redemption sprouts in weird soil. Winter saw subtle upgrades, LED path lights, trimmed trees, playground murals of astronauts and bees. A realtor even bragged, "Now with transparent HOA." The calm lasted until we uncovered a missing fidelity insurance premium, money Loretta had pocketed. Teresa wrestled the insurer with case law until they coughed up $60K, which bought license plate readers and funded porch jams, Friday night guitar circles where kids chased fireflies, and donations went to local charities. Punitive damages came next. Via prison video, Loretta watched Judge Clark levy triple restitution, $558K, calling it a ledger entry titled Consequences. Reporters framed Oakwood Bluffs as the blueprint for grassroots reform. I greeted new neighbors with lemonade and the line, "Welcome to the Transparent Edition." A glossy brochure soon slid under doors. Bluffs Property Management, automatic enrollment unless the board objects. Greer, the slick rep, wilted when Kip told him, "Sir, we are the board." Z traced the LLC to Loretta's cousin. A cease and desist and 75% approval petition killed the scheme. Next threat, a developer wanted micro apartments on a vacant 2-acre lot. Bryce's drone showed most supporters were absentee landlords. Teresa cited municipal code giving primary say to residents. The variance tanked. We crowdsourced a down payment, bought the land, and christened it Restoration Park. Thank Hannah for the name. Loretta mailed me a cork coaster etched "Owning Up beats owning others." It sits on my desk. Imperfect, useful. August brought another cousin's stunt, stripping copper coils from the clubhouse HVAC. Cameras caught the plate. Restitution now includes weekend sod laying at Restoration Park. Then, at exactly 2:39 a.m., my phone rang. A groggy stranger sought the local pizza joint. I laughed, told him to try chamomile, and realized the timestamp had finally lost its menace. I added one line to our plain English handbook: document, collaborate, illuminate, and slept till sunrise. Loretta's first parole bid failed. The board's measured letter cited harm but supported rehabilitation. Park jams replaced porch jams, drawing food trucks and hundreds of neighbors. Calm, we learned, isn't lack of conflict but sturdy systems plus good faith. When the first snow fell, children built lopsided snowmen while adults swapped cocoa recipes. The clubhouse's new HVAC hummed, paid for by accountability. I tucked the coaster into my pocket, joined a sled brigade to Restoration Park, and smiled at how vigilance, once born of fear, had matured into simple neighborly warmth. Friends, thank you. See you soon.